Hey champions, it's me, Kitty. This summer, I kind of made it a goal that I wanted to try connecting with you guys some more. So I figured we could try some video type stuff. So I'm gonna give it a shot. Not sure how it's gonna go. You guys will have to let me know if you like this or not. But today I thought I would talk about one of my absolute favorite tropes. And that is marriage of convenience, which I will admit, as a fantasy romance author, it's a little weird because marriage of convenience is a trope that's mostly used in Regency romance and contemporary romance. And for those of you who don't know what marriage of convenience is, it's one of two things, where either two characters will get married or they will be in a fake dating relationship. If they get married, it's for some kind of reason. They both get something out of it. It's not romantic. Typically, it's not even platonic. It's just they're forced to do so for one reason or another. That's kind of why it's used a lot in Regency. Contemporary, you see more of the fake dating kind of relationship. I still consider that marriage of convenience, though, because it's basically like an offshoot. So I have written, I don't know how many books, I think we're almost on 50. I think we're in the upper 40s, somewhere in that threshold. But I've done a lot of different kind of romance tropes, and I have actually managed to pull off marriage of convenience 3 times, and that's because I'm kind of obsessed with it. So it's in 3 series, I guess series/books. So the first one, as you guys probably guessed, is Crown of Shadows. Let me try and get that without the glare. But yes, so Crown of Shadows. For those of you guys who have not read Crown of Shadows yet, it is a no-spice urban fantasy series about a half-human, half-fae named Lila, I just said my character's name wrong. It's Layla. I have no idea why I called her Lila. Oh boy. Anyways, so Layla basically finds out that she is the next queen of the Fae Night Court, which she's not super thrilled to be, but she's especially not thrilled when she finds out that there's a super archaic, ancient law that basically says in order to be actually crowned queen, she has to get married. And she has to marry someone from within her court, and she has to make sure that she's balancing all this political kind of stuff. So for her, she tries to make the decision that's basically going to help her survive, because she's also dodging assassination attempts during this whole series. So finished 3-book trilogy, marriage of convenience romance, and that's an urban fantasy, which I worked really hard to get that in here, guys. I was dead set because I wanted a marriage of convenience story. So that should tell you what kind of a fan I am of this trope. But yeah, next up, we have what you guys were probably thinking of, and that is Royal Magic. Royal Magic is book 2. It's a standalone, so it's book 2, but it is a standalone. You can read it. It doesn't really matter, even if you haven't read book 1 in my Elves of Lesses series. And it is kind of on the opposite end of the spectrum from Layla's problem, and that's where it's about an elven princess who is stuck being the regent for her sister, who's the actual crown princess, and her dad, the elf king. And basically, she's a fish out of water. She does not fit in with her elven court. She is much more fiery and sassy than they're used to. And she constantly is having to hold herself back. So she figures out, though, that the one way she can get out of this position is if she gets married, specifically to a human, because that means that she wouldn't be able to go live in elven lands because she'd have to stay with her human husband. So she tries recruiting various guys. She thinks about various ways that she can get this done. And in the end, she realizes that her best bet is the snake of an ex-crown prince of the human country that her country is allied with, and that is Prince Benjamin, who's actually the villain for book 1 in this series. So not only is it a marriage convenience, it's kind of like a villain redemption arc. It's not kind of, it is. It absolutely is. I don't know why I said that. Anyway, this is, I would say, a more classic version of marriage of convenience, and it's probably why this is my favorite book in the Elves of Lesser trilogy. I'm really partial to this trope. You guys are gonna learn that again and again and again. Just wait, I'll come up with more books in the future where I can have marriage of convenience. But yes, so this one has lots of still fighting and adventure and swashbuckling type fights with bandits and all that kind of stuff. Lots of magic, and then it explores like the differences between elven and human cultures. So I really had a fun time writing it, just because there's such great characters. Benjamin being his like snaky, villainous self, and then Gwendolen just being like a blazing kind of character. They were so fun, and it was really kind of fun to drive them together too, because most Marriage of Conveniences, they aren't necessarily like quite so logical about it, I guess you could say. So it was really fun to be able to write this one, and I really enjoyed that. Last but not least, and some of you guys are probably going to be surprised at this, but Luckless, which is my lit RPG story over on my AM Soma pen name. Luckless, lit RPG basically means that the story takes place inside a video game, but to be honest, the series is actually more of an homage to like Tolkien and C.S. Lewis and like the big sprawling epic fantasy worlds, and it's basically what would happen if someone from our time with our kind of like humor would be transported to that kind of world. Because that's basically what happens, is that there's a ton of players who are stuck in this fantasy video game and they're trying to get out. So they're dealing like with dwarves and elves that won't stop reciting poetry and stuff like that. So, but they tackle it from a more modern point of view. So that doesn't sound like it would be very conducive to a marriage of convenience, but I pulled it off, because since this is in a video game, in some video games your characters can get married, so to speak, or at the very least they can get engaged. So the main character of this book, Kit, she's the one right there, she has a really bad character that she got stuck on. Like, it's a joke of a character. Like, she's terrible, basically. Like, the computer characters hate her, they don't like talking to her. But through some accident, marriage of convenience, she ends up accidentally getting herself engaged to the best player on the server, like the best player playing the game at that moment, and that is Soulless Miles, pictured right here. So they haven't broken their engagement, partially because they have to do some special steps in order to pull it off, but also because they have to, in order to like get out of this game, they have to defeat this big bad guy, and they basically end up recognizing that Kit's the only one who knows how to get them out, and if she is acting as Soulless Miles' fiance, that gives her a lot more like political clout, I guess you could say, in the game, in terms of convincing characters to listen to what she says, because they're a lot more likely to follow Soulless Miles than they are Kit on her really terrible joke character. So those are 3 marriage of conveniences. As you can see, they all are like extremely different. They're very like, even on one end of the spectrum to the other, for like Gwendolen and Layla from my urban fantasy series. So, but that is my like kind of little spiel on marriage of conveniences. It's really fun to see how they play out on an individualistic basis, especially for the specific characters, because they all react very differently to how they end up getting into the marriage. And so it's just a trope that I really love, because I feel like it's able to kind of add in an emotional undertone to what appears to be a much more like logical and stark kind of relationship, and then watching them go from like, oh, we're only doing this for like business reasons, to like actually falling in love is so satisfying. Like, that's one of the things I love about this trope most. It's so good. So if you guys have any marriage of convenience books that you would like to recommend, leave them in the comments of this video. I will definitely check them out. I do know there's a lot of Regency ones, as I've said, and then there's a lot of fake dating ones in contemporary romance, but I am particularly partial to the fantasy version of Marriage of Convenience, so if you can think of anything else, I would really appreciate it. I did actually have a reader once point out that my version of Cinderella and the Colonel is almost a Marriage of Convenience. Sort of. Kind of. Yeah. So, give me your recommendations and let me know what you thought of this like movie style kind of thing, if you want to keep doing stuff like this. I'm going to keep trying. This is a learning process. I apologize beforehand, because in order to save myself time, I'm not going to be editing these, so they could be really interesting, and you guys could learn a lot about me that maybe you didn't want to learn. So leave your comments and feedback in the comments, because that's the only place where you can leave it. I'm really good at wording. All right. See you later, champions. Thanks.